Welcome to the Dark Zone, an adventure racing podcast.
Times in the race when you are the one feeling strongest, and there are times when you are the weakest, and that will happen to all of us during a long race, and probably happen many times during the race. So we all know that this is what a race looks like. You need help and you give help. So we're all comfortable with taking help and giving help, and we also, if someone not instantly say they need help, we usually see that now he's struggling a bit, I take your pack for a while.
Okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning, and if we're not back by dawn, call the president.
You're going the wrong way! What? You're going the wrong way! He says we're going the wrong way.
Oh, he's drunk. How would he know where we're going?
Yeah, how would he know? Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Welcome to the Dark Zone Adventure Racing Podcast. This is your host, Brian Gatens. Episode number 83. This is a big one. Welcome to the Swedish Armed Forces Adventure Team. Per Vestling and Oskar Svärd join us all the way from Sweden to talk about their race and their World Championship. A lot of good stuff in here. I don't want to spoil it, but sit back and enjoy yourself. This is a good one. A course is offered today on how to be a strong adventure racer, how to train, and how to be a good teammate. So thanks for being here. Before we get into the episode, I want to call out this episode's sponsor, Orienteer.co. That's right, Orienteer.co. A new app, use it on your phone, use it on your computer, lets you design a course, lets you run a course in your backyard. You could share courses, you could do different things. A newer application on the adventure racing scene, and we are happy to shed some sunlight on this product. So be sure to check it out, Orienteer.co. Quick little programming note for this episode. For the first good chunk of the episode, you can hear only Per and I speaking. Oskar was on a high-speed train with poor internet, and he joined us about halfway through the episode. So it's Per first, then Oskar comes in. They both did a great job, but I said Per, I said Oskar. Where's Oskar? He was on the train. You'll hear him eventually. I'd like to also mention the Dark Zone's charity partner, Ascend Athletics. We are proud to support their mission to empower young women through mountaineering-based leadership training and community service. All of our listeners are encouraged to visit ascendathletics.org to learn more about Ascend and their work in helping to develop leadership and resiliency in young women in Pakistan and Afghanistan through fitness, mental health, community service, and mountaineering. Please note that Ascend pays nothing for this mention. We just love the work that they do and are happy to spread the word. Be sure to check out their website for some upcoming activities that anyone can get involved in. Clearly a heck of a course, right? Clearly it was something else. Was the course everything you thought it was going to be, or did it get, or was it more or less than as hard as you thought it was going to happen?
I think it was more than I was. The sections were longer and than I sort of thought before and was expecting. So it was longer. And we were expecting, as he said, like about 100 hours, but then it added up, and in the end, we that you guys, you were enjoying the course so much, you want to stay out there longer, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we were watching you at the end, and those sand dunes were just a big handful for you, and back and forth, and I don't know if you have a chance to get the scope of the dot watching experience, but I mean, there were so many of us that were just sitting at home and just watching the race and how you guys were doing. And when you were back and forth on those final CPs, we were holding our breath. I mean, we knew you weren't going to get caught, but it was like, holy cow, these poor people are out there for so long.
But we were nervous. We didn't know if they were like 5 minutes after or hours after. So at first we went out from the TA. We know no team had arrived there. So we knew we had kind of a lead, but we didn't know how much, if they came
Well, exactly. Well, what's part of the trick, right? I mean, you get into a TA and you see that everybody else's bikes is still there, right? So you're for the most part, you could tell you're in first place.
Yes.
But you have no context of how close the teams are behind you.
No.
Right? And so that there's that psychological component of the race. And clearly you had read, I mean, day 5, you really kind of turned the gas on and you really started pulling away from the field at that time. At any point during the race, when you as a team, you were rolling, when did you really struggle in regards? Was it the cold and the heat in the beginning? Was it that sleep at the end? Like, clearly, I mean, first off, congratulations on winning a world championship, right? We're sitting here having a conversation. I should tell the listeners at least who you are. Per Vestling is joining us from the Swedish Armed Forces Adventure Team, the 2023 World Champions of Adventure Racing. They won in 2021. The team was, I'm going to let you say everybody's name because I want to make sure I don't butcher it. I'll say the first names. It was John, Malin, Oskar, and Per were the members of the team. Could you give me everybody's full name? Because I don't want to butcher the pronunciation. Who was your team?
Yes, it's the team captain, John Karlsson, who has been in the team from the beginning. And then Malin Hjalmarsson has also been in the team from the beginning. And then it's Oskar Svärd. He joined a few years ago. And then me, Per Vestling, I joined for this year. I have been racing before, but it was for me, it was 11 years since I did a World Championship. And I was in the team winning the World Championship at 2011 in Tasmania. So for me, it was sort of a comeback, and it was a very long time since I did it. So But it's a great team, and we had a really good race together.
Who's your? I always like to ask about navigation. A lot of the listeners of the Dark Zone are newer racers, right? And the goal of the Dark Zone is always to share with the world adventure racing and the training and the culture and the climate and how that goes. I always like to talk with navigation, and I have to tell you, I don't know how much of the coverage you caught up on if you even look at Facebook, but there's a comment on Facebook where someone's kind of like, well, it looks kind of easy, the navigation. I mean, clearly it's someone sitting on their couch, right? They have no idea. How complex as a team did you find the navigation?
Both complex and easy. Some parts were quite easy. I mean, the long biking sections, more or less, turned the right way, and there was not any big difficulties. But then on some trekking sections and places where the maps and the real life is not really the same. There are trails and tracks going that are not on the map, and there are tracks on the map that there are not really. So in some parts, it's very complex. Right. And also when you're there in the nighttime to find things, it's getting even more. And then for us in the last section, you add also the sleep deprivation. Sort of your head is not thinking as fast as clear as you would want it to do, and then it adds up even more complexity to the navigation.
Right, and so it gets progressively harder as the race goes on because the strain on the team gets higher and higher. Plus the personal exhaustion, the wear and tear on the body, and I think that's what that makes adventure racing such an amazing sport. Is that so many different systems have to work in unison to come together. Right, your physical component, the team component, the mental component. So your point was well taken that it was at times the long bike sections I heard were really something else, right? Just you're on a road for hours and hours and hours. But sometimes, it gets dark and it gets slow at night and your lights are on and you're looking for a checkpoint somewhere out there in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly. And also in this long you should turn right someplace, but in the very long sections you go hours after hour, and then there is a turn, and it can be easily missed if you're not focused at that moment. So and if you turn in the wrong place and you think you're in the right place, you can end up spending hours coming back to and finding out where you are. So it can easily be very complex.
And then there's the point sometimes in the race, and we've all gone through it. And if you're a world championship or if you're someone who's racing on a weekend, there's that feeling of what you have a map in your hand and you think you know where you are, but you're not completely certain. And it's like, do I go right? Do I go left? And you have to make that decision there. And that's where the team kind of comes together. Did you find during the race itself, the navigation, obviously it was at times easy and at times complex. When you layer on top of that the terrain itself, one thing we've been hearing about South Africa was that it was rough going. The roads were relatively rough. I mean, this is an adventure race in the middle of Eastern, the African Cape.
Yeah,
clearly challenging terrain. The heat, the cold, the quality of the roads, things like that. Was that what the team expected it to be, or was it more challenging in that regard?
I think it was more or less what we expected, and in some parts we expected it to be maybe even worse. I mean, we looked around before the race. We spent a few days before the race, and we were driving around a little bit just to see what the roads and the terrain and what the trails were looking like. So we had an idea of what it looks like in the terrain, and also what the map looks like and how accurate that is. So yeah, we did some research, and I think we pretty much expected what really showed in the race as well.
Sure. And to that point, you mentioned before the race you did some driving around and you had gotten into to Kouga early. Preparing for the race itself, when I had a chance to watch and to read some of your post-race interviews and some of the conversations you had, you talked a lot about the level of preparation you had going into the race, where you felt that you were a legitimate shot at being world champions. Before the race even started, what is the team's preparation as a team? Do you train together often? Does your life allow that? Do you do some races back and forth? Like, how close are you as a team when it comes to training before the race actually starts?
Well, we live apart, so some of us, Oskar and John, they train, maybe on a weekly basis, sometime together. But for the rest of the team, we don't meet that often. But we have some training camps that we come together and train together, and we did the race in Croatia in May as a preparation for this as well, to come together and train. And since it was my first race with the team, also to sort of try us out and talk together how we would do this in the best way. And as for the preparations, navigation wise, we of course read all the posts about the race and tried to get a picture of how the race, where it would be and how it would be, taking the clues that they gave us. And also, I mean, you can print out maps, find topo maps on the internet. So we printed out, of course, to get an idea what does the map look like. And also then before the race, driving around and look, we have the map. What does it look in reality? Is this trail on the map or not? And so to get as much info as possible and to get as good preparations and to know what to expect when we stand on the start line.
Yeah, that's a very common thing. I think we all do that, right? We're going to do an adventure race, and for those who are new to the sport, it's not uncommon for the teams to get the maps just before the beginning of the race, right? Some teams do it the night before, some do it the morning of. Some races get it on the bus to the start, right? And that's part of the dynamic of adventure racing. But when you know there's a race start place, right, a resort or a town or a location, everybody spends time before the race looking at the maps and looking at the topo and trying to get a sense of the course. And so Swedish Armed Forces is no different than that. And the fact that this was your first time racing with as a group. You did Croatia together, but you were returning to the sport. You had to work on the team dynamic. How much discussion did the four of you have about that team dynamic for the race? Or did you just start racing together and you tried to figure out that dynamic along the way?
We had some training before the first race together, and where we discussed things. But the other three had raced together for a few years, and they had sort of a plan how they divide things up. And I come to the team, and my my role was to help Oskar with the navigation, that we help out with the navigation, and then I mean John already had the role as a team captain and takes care of the strategic decisions and thinking, and then we have Malin that does all the logistic and packing and food planning and all. She does all that, and she does it very good, and we trust her on that. So we don't interfere. She makes a plan for that, and then she presents to us, and we go with it, sort of. So they had their roles, and I just came in and took my role in the team, sort of. And so we had some discussions before, and we tried it out in Croatia, and we had some discussions after if there were small things we wanted to adjust. And me and Oskar had talked a lot about how to do the navigation together, and how in this race it was kind of new for both of us to get the maps and had to write all the print, mark the checkpoints and all that before. None of us had really done that before. So that was new. So we had to find a strategy for that, and so we had a lot of discussions.
I'll explain that to the listener. So the way it works, and those who listen to the previous episode with Stefan, the race director, teams would get basically blank maps at transition areas, and then there were the master maps that were laid out on tables, and it was a team's responsibility to go over and to self-mark their own maps where the checkpoints were. Yeah. Did you have, and you mentioned that was new to you, did you have a plan for how to do that? Like, for example, would Oskar go and would he mark up those maps and then you would go and double check his work? Or did you just assume that Oskar did it properly the first time? And I asked this question because Team 400 mismarked their maps and they missed checkpoint 26. And as a result, they finished second, but they were ranked behind everybody else because they missed a checkpoint because your team had cleared the course. Did you have a strategy for that map marking, or did you just assume that Oskar was going to be okay with it?
We had a strategy, and so our strategy was that sort of that both of us should check that the CPs were right. So if one was marking it, we tried to mark both sets of maps. We got two sets of blank maps, and our goal was to mark both of them. So if Oskar was doing the navigation, which he did on foot mostly, I would have a set of maps that were the same, so I could have the map and see and support him when he needed. I mean, you could give the map back and forth, but it's much easier if both have a map and he can ask me and I know exactly what he means instantly and can have a look, sort of. So we had a strategy that we mark both of them and both of us should check all the checkpoints so we got them right. And we also in the team had a strategy that the map marking and the map that we allowed it to take the time we needed for that. I mean, if we needed to stay more time at the transition, it was worth it. The others, Malin and John, they took care of our bikes. They did that. That's their task in the TA, and we focused on the maps to get them right and correct. And on the biking, we marked the route choices because when you bike, it's harder to look. And mostly it was maybe you had a checkpoint and then you went through 1, 2, 3, or 4 maps before you came to the next checkpoint. So you had to lay them out when you draw and make, this is the route we are going to go. If you do the trekking, you can more read while running or walking, so it's easier. So then we didn't mark as much the route choices, but navigation
so we had of the bike is so hard, right? So you had that set. You knew what you're going to do going into it, and that was we had a lot of discussions here online and informally about that, because that's a whole separate discipline now, right? Doing that properly, and and transitions are a discipline. I was speaking to some other the racers prior to this interview, and one question I came across was the transition areas in this race were very, very nice from what we saw. The food, the people, the vibe. How did the team avoid getting pulled into the black hole of a transition area, right? Because once you stop racing, you just, if there's a fire, they call that pillow rock, right? You don't go near the fire. What did you say to yourselves on the way in? Like, listen, okay, transition area, no more than 10 minutes, or let's move people. Or did the team have the self-discipline just to move quickly through the TAs?
I think more that we had that discipline. We all knew, I mean, me and Oskar, we focused on the maps, and when the maps were done, we went back and helped the others with finishing the bikes up and or whatever needed to be done, and then so we could get going as quickly as possible. So I think all of us were focused on doing it as fast as possible when we get in, and usually going into a TA, I guess most team does that, but we repeat it for ourselves. What needs to be done? What things are we bringing out? And so we made sort of a plan going in for coming out as fast as possible.
And what's funny too is because you were in the lead for so long, you didn't see a whole lot of other teams on the course. And so as a result, unless you cross somebody like in an area, you really were kind of by yourselves at the front of the race for such a long time.
Yeah, we were. I mean, we saw the Estonians and the French on and off for some times. But mostly we were walking, running, biking alone. Yes. Alone.
And I bring that up because it's the transition areas are humanity, right? It's civilization. You see people, and if you have media people there, and if your friends are there, and you see that, and and when you pull into a TA, it's almost like, it's not that you've won the race at each TA, but the volunteers are probably so happy to see somebody that they kind of celebrate your arrival, right? You kind of feel like you finished, like, oh, look at us, we won the race, we're in the TA, and you have like 4 more days of racing ahead of you. And so I have found personally that it's easy to get pulled into the transition area and talking to people and connecting with people and taking energy from them. But then all of a sudden, like, the clock just gets faster and faster and faster. And we realize if you spend too much time in the TA, every moment that you're stopped, the teams behind you are moving. And they're on the way to get you. So I appreciate, the listeners appreciate the fact that you just sort of all knew to move quickly through the transition area and get out of there, because that was our strategy. And if someone started talking to some reporter or something a little too much, we reminded each other that we need to get going and we need to do this quickly. Right.
So we try to help out as much as possible too.
It is an interesting strategy. I like how some race directors, and this was done here in America with Endless Mountains is a 5-day race here in America, and what they did was Rootstock Racing. They put together every team had to do a transition at one of the CPs. Every team had to stop for the same 5 minutes and do an interview. And that was from the team that was in the lead, who, by the way, had no desire to talk to me because they wanted to get going. God bless them again. That's why they won. And then the team at the very, very back, everybody had those 5 minutes. So to your point, when you talk to the media, everybody pays the same time price. As opposed to you, because people are hungry for race information, and it's tough. And from a media perspective, you want to simultaneously respect the racers and get them out on the course, but you also want to get some content and information for the people at home. And that's where it gets challenging. But
mostly I think it was quite okay. They maybe they followed us in or out interviewing on the way. So I don't think we spent too much time talking, lost any time talking.
And Charlotte did a great job. Charlotte Farragut with her magic microphone. The thing seemed to work everywhere. She'd be in the middle of Nowheresville, and that microphone. I have to get myself one of those. A big topic of conversation during the race was the swings in the heat from the cold at night to the heat during the day. How did you? I saw in your post-race interviews that you had threw yourself into the streams and somebody was covered in mud the entire time. What is your weather strategy? How does the team manage that?
I don't know if we had any real strategy. We more on the very hot sections. I mean, we had to slow down the pace to not get too exhausted and try to cool down as much as possible and drink a lot. And so on the long trekking up where it was very warm, we said we we pace ourselves. We go slower now, and when the sun goes down, we can increase the speed again and go faster. And I think we succeeded in doing that very good. And then was a very hot section on the last biking, going up the Bavians, the mountains there, where we had to go slower again. And on that place, I was also not very well, so we had to go slow anyway. But
you said how you would slow down.
Yeah.
What is your team's speed? Like how quickly, like when you say you're trekking, do you trek at a fast walk? Are you running? Do you walk on the hills and do you run the flats? On the bicycle, like, are you in a pace line the entire time? Like, what does it look like? What does fast look like for Swedish Armed Forces?
Fast. If we go fast on the trekking sections, I would say, then we run in the flats and the downhills all the time, and usually walks in the uphills. And maybe on the first section, you might do some slow running in uphill too, but usually on the flats and in downhill you run and you walk as fast as you can uphill, in a steady pace uphill. Yes,
right. So when you say you run, and they talk in training the idea of being in zones, right? Zone 1 is like you're basically walking. Zone 5 is you're completely out of breath. In between, when you're running on a flat during, like, is it conversational pace? Like, can the team talk to each other? Are you sweating hard? Is your heart rate elevated? Or do you play the long game and realize we're out here for 100 plus hours, and we better not get ourselves too tired, get ourselves too gassed? Like, how do you control? You move so quickly, but and obviously your training plays a huge role, right? I've seen pictures of you. You're lean, you're strong. You have to do it for 100 hours. So how do you manage that for that long?
Yeah, I would say we have a pace where we can talk, and we have a pace that no one in the team goes on red sort of, or goes too hard, since it's, as you said, it's a long race. We have to last for 5 days, so there's no use going too fast.
So what does your training look like in advance of the race? Be able to go for 5 days, to go the 100 hours and have the conversational pace. What is like a normal training cycle for someone like you? Like, and we all balance our lives, right? And obviously in the military component for all of you, and it's kind of built into the culture of who you are. Yeah. How many hours a week would you guess do you actually spend time physically training to prepare for the race?
For me, I was doing between 12 and 15 hours a week training for this. Some weeks when we had some training camps, for some it was more, and some weeks when I needed a bit recovery, it was less. But maybe on an average 12 to 15, and I try to do at least one longer trekking, because the trekking is the running is the one that takes the most on your legs. So do a longer running with backpack. So maybe when that you're out for 3, 4, 5 hours, do at least one of these every week to get your legs used to the long running with the backpack.
Yeah, and that's the idea of the big weekend, right? Like for a lot of folks who have typical 9 to 5 jobs, what you do is you squeeze in what you can during the week, and then you set aside a weekend day to go big either one of those 2 days. But I think it's nice that you share that data, because you are the world champion. Let's call it what it was, right? You went to South Africa and you had a commanding race. You did so well. But I'm sure that there are people at home right now who are training for their own races, and they're getting ready, and they're realizing that, like, you're doing this on 12 to 15 hours a week. I mean, you have years of base behind you. You've been doing this for a long time. But the fact that you're the average racer, the weekend warrior, could hear you talking about your training and realize that there's a closer connection between the two of you than they realize. That you're not, living off on your own. And I do agree with you that the trekking with the pack is huge in many ways, because the wear and tear on the body. How did the team protect their body during the race? Because everybody breaks down, right? Everybody falls apart during a race. How did you stave that off for as long as possible?
Yeah, one thing is that to pace ourselves, not go too hard, so you wear your legs out. And one problem that we all had in the end was sore feet, and to take care of that, you change socks often and try to dry your feet out as much as possible. We had good shoes that you don't get blisters and that are roomy and comfortable.
What shoes? What brand shoes do you wear?
We have Topo Athletics is the brand. They have very wide forefoot, so your toes have a lot of space, and they're really good, I think, for this kind of racing. They worked really good for us anyway. So they were really good.
I mean, this racing was between the rockiness of the terrain with the sand and the grit. I mean, once that gets into your shoes, and the idea of drying your feet out. I had the chance to race this weekend, and some the feet on some people were pretty beat up, and what it was feet that got wet, that they stayed in the wet shoes forever, and your feet get quote unquote they get dry. They really don't get dry. They just get less wet, and then over time your feet just break down. And you're right about that wider foot, because your toes just get hammered. I mean, going downhill is just brutal sometimes with the pack on your back. And on that the topic of the pack on your back, how much gear sharing do you do during the race? Do you alternate who carries weight for other people?
Yeah, a little bit. Oskar is the physically strongest, so he had some more in the beginning because he's stronger. And then we share when someone feels tired or sore, or in some way we try to shift the gear as fast as possible, and to the ones that are feeling the best carries more. So we try to move around when needed as much as possible.
Did you sometimes people struggle asking for help? Right, that's not an uncommon dynamic. That if you're in a race and if you ask for someone to assist you in the race, you're fearful in your head that you come across as feeling weak. Right, you're falling apart.
Yeah.
And that requires you to trust your teammates, to everybody to sort of admit when they're having a hard time.
Yeah.
Do you discuss that before the races? As listen, you have to give your gear up, you have to share your gear, or are you also comfortable with each other that you realize that sharing gear is not admitting weakness?
No, we have all been racing so much, so we know that there are times in the race when you are the one feeling strongest, and there are times when you are the weakest, and that will happen to all of us during a long race, and probably happen many times during the race. So we all know that this is what a race looks like. You need help, and you give help. So we're all comfortable with taking help and giving help, and we also, if someone not instantly say they need help, we usually see that now he's struggling a bit, I take your pack for a while. So I think we help each other. It comes natural in some way. I didn't feel it was any problem at all getting help or helping out. So I think we have a good way to solve it in the team in that way.
And the self-talk, what I do for myself, I hear other people do too, is that the internal dialogue with yourself is, if I don't give my teammates some of my gear, I'm hurting the team, right? Because if you insist on holding on to your gear and you get slower and slower and slower, you're slowing the team down. So sharing your gear is actually the best thing to do for the team. So it's not self. You're not helping yourself. You're helping the team. We had a race this past weekend out here called the Stockville, a 2-day race. I really struggle with downhill descents. I always kind of have. If this is the internet, you can't see what I look like, but I'm kind of tall and I'm kind of big, and going downhill is always kills me. My teammates this weekend were like, "Listen, we're taking stuff out of your bag," and I gave and it was amazing how when I shared my stuff with my teammates who are much better at descending, the whole team just did better. Right. And we really encourage that for the newer racer, that you have to get humble, right? Either you get humbled, either you are humble or you get humbled. Right, you learn over time to do that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the feet and how sore feet was a tough thing, and getting dry as much as possible. What about nutrition? What is the team? Is there a team strategy going in? How much did you eat your own food? How much food did you find on the course? How much did you? Because logistically, you mentioned Malin is in charge of all those logistics, like the food and everything, which, by the way, is a really, really hard thing to do.
Yeah.
How did you feed yourselves during the race?
When it comes to food, we or Malin makes a plan for all the race, and we bring all the food we need for the race. So and we bring it all from home. We usually don't buy almost anything, nothing from when we at the place. So we plan to have all the food we need from Sweden, and Malin makes a plan for all that, and she plans what to bring, and it's candy, it's bars, it's anything that you and a mixture, so you don't get fed up with one thing, you have some other things. And for this race there was also this problem with the weight limit on the boxes, because when we had packed our boxes the first time with all the food we thought we needed and with all the gears, I think we had 10 kilos too much. So then we had to take out food and gear and sort of slim it as much as possible. So we ended up for the long biking down, we only had sort of one freeze-dried meal and some candy, and we counted on that we could stop in some of the villages that we would pass to buy something more, because we didn't have room to put in. We had some, and we didn't eat all on the paddling down, so we had some more. So we had some food, but we had to buy. We knew we had to buy on the way there. And of course, in the transitions, if we found hamburgers or anything that was easy, accessible, and easy, of course, we bought that to eat that instead of the dried food we brought, just to get some real food. Of course, we take all the opportunity we can to buy good food if it's easy, accessible on the course. But since we can't count on getting food, we bring all that we think we need from home.
And that's that balance, right? Carry as much as you can to the course, and you probably everybody ends up bringing food home, right? You tend to bring it with you, and you pack what you can, and you overestimate, and then eventually a lot of it comes back with you. I mean, some of my food is the most well-traveled food in the world. It's flown across the oceans twice.
Yes.
And so you mentioned the idea of sourcing local food and the TAs and things like that. A lot of the pictures that came out of the race were pictures of teams that had stopped in local cafes and were with the local citizens and having a good time. You're there to win the race. Do you do any of that kind of stopping during the race, or do you just keep going?
We didn't really stop. We stopped. We bought food in the TA where we had to stop anyway, and where it was easy for one to go and buy food while the others preparing, so we didn't lose time. Except from that, we stopped in the long biking. We stopped in a shop to buy food, and stopped for a short while to eat there. But that was because we were out of food, and we had to refuel our bodies. That was survival,
right? That was survival.
Yeah, that was survival. So we didn't stop to have a good time. We were doing a fast shopping, and ate a snack fast and put the rest in our bags and kept going, sort of.
Yeah. I know many racers, myself included, have a tough time avoiding the gravitational pull of a good cafe.
Yeah.
if there's fresh bread and coffee, we're stopping.
Yeah. Can we see if Oskar is?
Oskar, I think Oskar might be here. Might be trying to join us. How old are the two of you? What are your respective ages?
I'm 47.
I turned 50 this year.
50 this year, and first off, I'll be 53 on Saturday, right? So we're the old men club here. But I love the idea that at those ages that you're performing at such a high level. And so let me shift gears just a little bit in terms of, we talked about training before. Oskar, you were on the train and you kind of heard our conversation going on. We talked about training and getting ready and keeping yourself fit. Oskar, what is your strategy for staying this strong that at 50 years old you could go and you could become a world champion?
I think for me, it's been that I have been competing in cross country skiing, in long distance skiing until I was 40, and that was like 20 years of a lot of training and much more training than I do today. And I never stop after that. I go on with the training, but not on the elite level. And then 4 years ago, or 5 years nearly now, in the beginning of 19, when I got the chance to come in this team, I once again start to train more. But I cannot train like 20-25 hours every week nowadays, because my body, I don't recover so well as I did when I was 20-30. So I heard Per say that he's training around 12 to 15 hours, and maybe I'm training around 15 hours in like some medium. Some weeks 25, but some weeks also 5 to 10 when I speed up in more quality or higher intensity training. And I also think, I heard what you say about the amateurs and people in lower level, that they train a lot, but I think it's important what you train. And I think we have discussed that a lot in the team, and we try to focus and have some training sessions where you really need to do the long distance running for the muscles for the leg. But I think maybe some people do a lot of that long sessions and sometimes forgot the high intensity training, that they like the base of training and the most important training, even if you are doing a 5 days race.
Yeah, and it's the idea of all about balance. Does the team work with any sort of coaches, or do you all just do your training independently? We discuss training a lot in the team, and we try out and follow the new things coming up. And we also, of course, use all the experience we have from our all of us have competed in different sport, different level since it was small. But we have no training coach for the team. But once again, we discuss training, and I think all of us know what we need to do. And then it's up to each athlete to do this. Right, exactly. Yeah. So there's the informal conversation among the team members regarding expectations, and then independent of that, you have to do your own training to get ready. And to your point, you all have these long experiences with racing, and it all kind of comes together. Let me bring you back, Oskar, to the race itself. Clearly commanding performance, and you were listening before you were on the train, and I was talking to Per about the success that was had there. For the actual 100+ hours that you were on the race course, what did you find to be the most challenging part of that race itself? What really, where did you find that the team had the hardest time?
First, I would like to say that we have done a lot of work before the race, and I have never standing on the start line with so much confidence and really know that we should do a very good race. If we should be the winner, or if we should be number 2, 3, or 4, or 5, you never know, because that depends on the other teams. But I think from the start, we did exactly what we have planned. We don't look at other teams. We have our own sleep strategy and so on. And I think that works really, really good, maybe until the last leg. And for me, the last leg was, I was really fresh during the whole race, except the last leg when I had the sleeping problems. I was walking, sleeping, and that was really, really tough. And what's new for us this year, that we have during these 5 years, I have been alone as navigator in the team, and that's a big pressure. You should be fresh in the head the whole time. You should do the right decisions. And now we have Per as also a really good navigator, and we can discuss things, and we can help each other. And I heard that you discussed the France team make the mistake with the control. So and Per have some hours with some problem with the stomach, and maybe he was not the strongest. But in the last leg, when I was out, then he come and could be fresh, and he had recovered. We have take his bag a little bit and so on, and then he was fresh, and he could help me with a map. Unfortunately, I think the last leg had the worst map.
That was hard on you guys.
And it was also dark. I mean, if you had that leg in the sand dunes in the light, it had been not so much problem. But to try to explain what was sand dunes, what vegetation, what was the thing between, and the map, I must say, was not. I think in these 42 maps was quite. I mean, as 1 to 50,000, you know what you will have, and we was prepared for that. But the last one was maybe the worst one, and then we was also tired, and I was very, very tired of. I want to sleep also. So that was, I think, totally that was the toughest one. Had we know that we was in so big lead before the last leg, then we could have slept 2 hours there, and we have had faster time in the finish.
And that's the challenge, right? You're in the dark, you're in the sand dunes, you're looking behind you for headlamps, right? I mean, because at any moment a team come up, you don't know where you are in relation. You mentioned sleep strategy and the idea of racing out there for multiple days. When the race started, right? The race, I believe, was 11 o'clock start in the morning, and you had to be transported to the race start. So let's say when the race started, you were awake for 6 hours. Race starts at 11 o'clock in the morning. When did the team take its first rest, and how long was that rest?
We didn't sleep anything the first night, and that is a really good strategy, because then you are you're still very fresh in the body and so on. So that was no problem. And we saw the change, the transition between leg 3 and 4. That was the perfect place for us to have the first sleep. And then we can decide how long we sleep, also depending on how long, in which time we will arrive there, because the dark zone of the Pally. So we got exactly what we want. We slept there for 2 hours and 50 minutes. There was some address inside, and that was the best sleep for us during the whole race. Yeah. And then we go on, and then we slept nearly like 2 hours each night, but the quality was very big. It was not like the high quality like in the first sleep. Right. And then we did it for the second, third, and fourth night. But then we expected that the last leg should not be longer than 7-8 hours maybe. And then we was not sure. We have no idea how much. We was in the lead, we understand, because there was landowners. They was out. You are SAFAT, you are the leaders. But we have no idea how much time it was before the other teams. Right. So, it's easy to say now. If I know that you are in the lead with 8 hours, then of course we have stopped. We have slept for 2 hours, and then we have done a better last leg than and the total time have been shorter, because all of us was really tired.
Right. And that last leg was projected to take 7 hours, and you guys enjoyed it so much you stayed out there for 14. Right. So clearly that would really, and I was saying before when we started chatting how we were watching at home, that one CP in the sand dune was just bedeviling you. You were back and forth. Yeah. And that's what happened. I mean, eventually the sleep comes apart. So let me ask you a question about the strategy in the race. An excellent race course in many ways, and the race was so challenging in so many ways. That dark zone on leg 3, right? And for those at home, the idea that you got on the water, there's one paddling section in the race. You had to be off the water by a certain time. If you weren't off the water, you had to stop and go to the side of the river and stay there until the dark zone ended. Clearly, you were gunning to get through that dark zone. At any point, did you think that you were not going to make it, or did you know you'd be okay with the paddle?
I started. I think we was quite clear that we should fix it after the first and the second leg, because we saw that we have nearly the right time on the first leg. The bike number 2 was strong and everything. But of course, during the leg 3, when there was expected for 17 hours, I think, and we had 21, we was nearly one of the fastest team. Anyway, or Estonia was a little bit faster, but the heat was terrible for us Scandinavian Vikings. You know, we like the cold weather.
I can relate.
And then we understand that there should not be like 3-4 hours sleeping, because 5 o'clock we could go out. So we understand that, okay, we follow the plan. We do for this 2 hour 50 minutes as we have planned. And the France team arrived and they just slept for maybe 20 minutes and they went away. But we have our own strategy, and we will just follow this. And the paddling was also faster because there was so much water and so high speed, I think. Also,
yeah, people talk about how the paddle was so beautiful. It was fast. At any point, could you fall out of the boats? A lot of people got wet. Did you go in the water at all? It sounds like a yes.
Per, what did you say, Per?
Sorry, I was.
We went out, Per 2 times and I 1 time, but Malin and John, they was not doing it. And the canoe or the kayak was quite short, so we try a strategy that Per, who was sitting behind, should sit not on the
in the seat, behind the seats, but to sit a bit higher,
a little bit higher in the boat.
And that got a bit too unstable. And we got a bit surprised of the first rapid as well. So I think,
right. But and the good news is it wakes you up though. It takes away the sleep. When you go in the cold water, all of a sudden it's like a free shot of caffeine. And
maybe also a little bit dirty water on. So that was
you had it swimming to the racing. So good job on that. So now. You have 2 world championships inside the last 3 years, right? So now what is the horizon for the team? Like, clearly you're at the top of the podium in the world championships. You're looking towards the future. What is next? Are you getting into a dynasty idea that you plan on coming back next year and winning again? What does the future look like for Swedish Armed Forces?
I can talk for the whole team and the project, which is called like Swedish Armed Forces Elite. We are like 10 people in the whole Swedish forces who have a possibility to train half of the day and work half of the day during, like, if you look at 1 year. Of course, if you're a competition in 2 weeks, then you need to work full for 2 weeks after or so. But 50% of our time is for training and 50% for working, like in the green clothes, I normally say. And that project, it's 1 more year. So Malin, John, and me, who is like normally work every day in the army, we have this, and we also want that Per should stay with us in the team for 1 more year, and he have been like,
congratulations, Per, you get a contract. Congratulations, we're gonna keep you.
And. Like I say before, for me, it's been a huge difference in both in the racing Croatia and now that you have one. Even if maybe we can say that on the paper, the first navigator in Paris, the second, it's no matter. Yeah. We do this together, and we can discuss. I mean, when I discuss with John and Malin, they never have any idea nearly. I should not say exactly so, but John is quite smart and he have many ideas. But when you look at the map and you should make decisions, it's not like they don't want to take any decision. They say, "You, Oskar," like I heard Per say that John is very focused on all our material. I mean, we have no damage on anything, and it's because he's amazing work with the bikes and the right wheels and everything. And Malin is doing the logistics, and I never have. I just listen to Malin. When we come to the transition, 10 minutes, 5 minutes before, team, this is what we do. And she had planned everything in home. So it's quite easy to be in Swedish Armed Forces adventure team.
It sounds like as a team, you, as we discussed with Per and with, Oskar, that everybody on the team, besides having the base of experience for a lot of years of racing, you all really know your roles really well. One navigates, one person's logistics, one person's in charge of taking care of equipment. And so it sounds like you've fallen into this almost this Goldilocks experience where everybody kind of knows their job. And because they know their job, the team just moves faster as a unit and you're not figuring those things out anymore.
No, I think if you should start thinking about everything, then there's too much in the head anyway for me. Yeah. So I really happy that we have these clear rules and I do my work. And maybe my girlfriend don't like all the time I have spent on maps before the competition and all the night training. But anyway, I have my part of I should do this as good as possible, and then I really sure that Per do his work, Malin do his work, and John do his work, and that's the reason where we are in the top and have been. I should say we was number 2 in Paraguay since 2019. We have won all the adventure race series we have take part in. So I was really disappointed last year in Paraguay when we were second. We was in the lead to 5 legs, and then the Avaya was stronger. Or I don't mean stronger. They were smarter. They know the terrain. They know how to find this. Like I say, Indian tracks, how to find this and navigate in that kind of, and that's there. I really had been perfect to have a person like Per with more experience. Like I have just do this for some years, but we are a stronger team now. We are a more complete team, and not stronger, but we are a more complete team now.
Right. And I think what you're saying there is that, the strongest team, the quote unquote, the strongest team doesn't always win the race. There's a variety, there's strategy, there's all the things before the race, during the race that you have to add in there. And it sounds like the addition of the new teammate, bringing him on board, was part of the missing piece, if you will, that by bringing him in, it helped to make up for that challenge, having the second navigator there.
Absolutely. That was why we decide to. We have other people who is strong, who's really good athletes and good people and everything. But we that was missing last year in Paraguay. When I had this problem with the sleep, and we slept a little bit too less. We was pushing too hard to try to beat Avaya, and then we got a problem, and then the competition was out. The chance to win. It's not so bad to be number 2, but anyway, we want to win. And of course, Ecuador. I have never been in Ecuador, but it looks amazing on the photos, and we want to go there. And we have a start looking for a program for next year, and hopefully we can also in April visit US in a big race.
Yeah. Well, we hope you make it. First off, Ecuador, I had a chance to race down there with Santiago, one of his races, and you're going to love the experience. It's a beautiful country, tough terrain, great people. So obviously you're going to be at the World Champions next year in Ecuador. Dark Zone, we'll be covering that also. We'll be doing some sort of media alongside that. We really enjoyed our experience with South Africa, and when you get to America, we have to actually do our best to connect then, because big fans of Swedish Armed Forces. We love the work that you've done. We've loved your success, the way that what you do as a team. For those of us who are Venture Race fans, is by talking about your experience today, you sort of laid out a blueprint for what other teams can do along the way about the training and the work they do together and knowing everybody, knowing their role. So congratulations on your win. Congratulations on going into an off season. It's always nice to finish with a win, right? And we're just delighted for you. We're very, very happy for you. We are near the end of our time. We all have to begin our respective days and get rolling here. So I just want to we'll start with you first, Per, and then Oskar. Per, any closing thoughts before we finish up the podcast?
I'm very happy to be racing here. So and then to be able to race with this fantastic team it's been really good. And for me, when I got the question last year, it was sort of a 1-year project, but when it turns out this way, of course, you want to continue. So that's what I have to decide for myself and with my family. Yeah.
Very nice, very nice. And as we say in schools, what's fun? Winning is fun. So congratulations on your and the 1-year project might become a longer project, right? So congratulations
probably, yeah.
Good. And Oskar, finish us up. Take us home.
I mean, I'm also really happy to be in this team and get the opportunity from the team start 2014, and I comes in the team 2019, and I'm very, very, very happy. I also think we should say a big thank you to Stefan and Heidi and all the ARWS series to have this really, really good race in tough race. and they have done a great work. I also heard a little bit about the navigation on the bike, and as Per said, the navigation was not so difficult in first and second bike leg because it was quite big roads. Anyway, it was bad roads and it was a lot of wind and so on, and you must do the right way anyway, even if it's easy.
Yes.
But the interesting thing, and what we have heard, and when you go back and look at Stephen's races before, is that the end of the race always have been difficult navigation. And that's happened on the last bike leg, on the last leg, because from the Bavians, there was 2 opportunities to take, and we took the right one. And for example, the Estonian, they took the wrong way. And this was maybe a little bit shorter. It looked shorter on the map, not so much high meter, but the ground was totally different than the one we was using, who was a little bit bigger one. So I'm really happy that we, even if it looks maybe on the map not so difficult, we always took the right decisions of the right navigation. So I think that was really, really interesting.
Yeah, and clearly the right decisions at the right time with the right team. Congratulations, Swedish Armed Forces, on your World Championship. We want to talk to you all again. We want to hear about your off season. We hope you come back on the Dark Zone, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
And there you have it, episode number 83 of the Dark Zone and Adventure Racing Podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a listener. Special thanks to Oskar and Per for taking time out of their day to be on the show. Oskar had to deal with a train and he had to wait and all sorts of stuff he had to do. So we're grateful for everyone for being here. If you like what you hear on the show, please head over to your streaming platform of choice and rate and click and like. The algorithm likes that. And lastly, special thanks to our episode sponsor, Orienteer.co, a newer application on the AR scene that lets you design at-home-based navigation courses. It's new, it's fun, it's interesting. Give it a shot. And thank you, listeners, always for being here. We'll always be free to you. Have a great day. Keep racing, keep training, and be safe.
We're in this together. one's for you.